Hello and welcome to this Conscia seminar. Today we will be broadcasting from Copenhagen in Denmark. Today's topic is about the power and the danger of merging the IoT, the OT and the IT networks. We have a lot of powerful tools on each of these technologies, and we see an unprecedented opportunity to be able to exploit the synergies that exist by combining these technologies. But do we dare? Do we dare to connect them? We are always reminded about our vulnerabilities when we are regulated by NIS2 and stuff like that. Past events or the complexity or the world order in such remind us on going forward with great caution and open eyes. So we had a lot to lose, but I think we have even more to gain. So my word to you would be to embrace the continuous digitization and lean into it and own the technologies. So in this webinar we'll address some of these issues and probably also some solutions to these matters. But first a bit of housekeeping. So my name is Niels Mogensen and I'm with Conscia. This is my main area, IT, OT and IoT, the convergence, but I have a background in security which I have dealt with for, 3 decades. I'll be your host today and I'll try to get us all through the next few hours in a safe and sound manner. I'm very proud that we are actually today broadcasting to all 6 Conscia countries, and I'm even more proud that we have more than 130 registered participants. And that will tell me that this is urgent and matter. This is current and important for a lot of us. And it also explains why our manager that also explains why the marketing manager keeps smiling at me. So I've taken the control today. I muted you all. That means that you, without asking for permission, can go to the restroom, you can grab your coffee, you can yell at the dog, the kids or your colleagues without disturbing anyone. Also, I must inform you that we are recording this session. So if we behave well and my marketing manager keeps on smiling, we will probably go ahead and publish this webinar on our website at a later point. Last, I'll just inform you that we'll have a Q&A session in the end of this webinar. So please go ahead and type in your questions in the OT panel. I think it's down here or over here somewhere. Don't wait to the end of the session. Please, whenever a question pops up in your head, go ahead and put it in and we'll address them at the session. Don't use the chat panel. The chat panel is only for making fun of the presenters. We put an exciting agenda line up to you, and after this one I'll just spend a few minutes share some thoughts about the future of the IT department. What does the merger mean for us, and why should we lean into it? It's all in a holistic way, but don't worry, we'll get into some more detail, and I'll invite my good friend Pascal to the stage that will talk about the Cisco view on how to set us off on this journey that is ahead of us all. After that, I'll invite Onur to the stage, and he'll go into detail with the OT solutions and the products that's in Cisco's portfolio. Onur is a very knowledgeable man, and that might come in handy because just yesterday we had a cancellation from Pavel that was taken ill. We wish him the best, a speedy recovery, and we'll give the time slot to Onur instead. So without further ado, we'll lean into it. The merger of IT, OT and IoT, what will happen and what will it mean for the future of the IT department. Well, as I see it, we have been at it for many years, at least 40 or 50 years. So the development of the IT world has seen a remarkable growth. And we have started in the basement with the big mainframe, and now we are on the more modern era with cloud computing and with machine learning and artificial intelligence and much more. Back in the 80s, the advent of the personal computers brought the IT to the household. In the 19s, there was a wide acceptance of introducing the internet, which brought us all very much together. Here in the 21st century, we're seeing a rapid acceleration of development with stuff like mobile devices. We're seeing social media. We're seeing big data analytics, and now cybersecurity has become part of our daily life. So, and I believe that IT will continue to shape our future, the way we live, the way we work, and it will remain a global economy leader. So, on the OT, it's been around for just as many years. It's been characterized like, a proprietary or isolated system only used for industrial systems. And that might be the reason why we have such a stable and safe supply of water and electricity and stuff like that. We also have seen the industries, the manufacturers taking OT to heart, and they gained efficiency, stability, and quality as the positive outcomes of that journey. So it's taught us to handle processes in the real life world, in the physical world, but it's not as widespread as we have seen IT. Well, until now, where the new boy in the classroom emerges. So IoT, as in Internet of Things, might have been started out as a story in a sci-fi book, but it was quickly aimed at the consumer market. And I guess there's a lot of us that have different sensors and small networks that will collect and share data and use them on innovative ways in our households. But also here the industry have taken it to heart. And for example, the healthcare, agriculture and the transportation is keen on using IoT. So for example, the modern cars or the modern lorries, they are all fitted with sensors, thousands of sensors that all sends all the data back to the factory for analysis. That means that we don't have to go to our garage and get serviced on our cars every 10 or 15 or 30,000 kilometers. The car itself will tell us when it needs service, when something is about to go wrong, and we can address the problems in good time. Also, the windmill factories, every wind turbine have fitted a vibration sensor that is able to tell us or send data back to the companies, telling when things are about to go wrong, and we can do maintenance in good time. On my way over here, I just listened to a podcast, and I heard that Fender Guitars is, of course, controlling and monitoring their storage rooms with humidity and temperature because of its alive material being wood that they build the guitars of. So, and also that they apply sound waves to the raw wood and they record the acoustical reply and take it to analysis in order to find the best suited pieces of wood to make the guitars. So, but the fun stuff is not with us yet. So the community of IT, OT, and IoT is still living in parallel universes. I think they have different objectives, they think differently, they talk differently, they use different vendors, and they come from different places. Well, they even dress differently. So even though IT is trying to solve all the problems every time they do a project, that is why we love multi-purpose operating systems. In the OT world, they don't try to solve every problem every time. They tend to solve one problem, but to do it well. So they will never go in and use multi-purpose operating systems. So we have different traditions, and as a matter of fact, in the IT world, we designated a weekday in honor of our inability to get things right the first time. We call it Patch Tuesday. In OT, this is not an option, and they more to lean to the saying that if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Well, you can argue if there's a patch, it's because it's broken, so please go ahead and fix it. So we come from different places. The focus of IoT is more like getting low-cost products for the customers and for customers' convenience. So why is it that we are the bad playmates that we are? Well, I totally understand if the production had been set a task to cut out nice, big, juicy steaks. Of course, they would like a tool that is fitted for that. And I'm sure that most of you would agree that a Swiss Army knife will not be the good for this job. Even though if IT will claim that it's easier to maintain if we all use the same tools. So it's easier to maintain the infrastructure and the tool throughout the production. But we have different focuses, and also understand that if you're running a complex IT installation, you have a lot of data, you're not that keen on plugging in some production line that you don't know what it contains. You don't know what's in there, you don't know who built it, you don't know who has access to it. So what can that do to your own infrastructure and to your data? Could it mess something up? That's why we keep it at arm's length distance. The same about IoT. The typical question will be who made it, what does it do, what data does it pick out, and where does it send the data. And that is all legitimate questions asked in good faith to keep track of our own infrastructure and our own data. So this is my currently favorite slide, and I do apologize for not remembering where where the source of the data is coming from. So until further, you will have to consider it a questionable statement of mine. But I read somewhere that back in the days, 15 or 20 years ago, where IT was the only religion allowed, investment in new products was driven by IT in 80% of the time, and only 20% was driven by line of business. Well, that has changed a bit, and now it's the complete opposite. Now it's IT is only driven projects are only driven by IT in 20%, and driven by line of business in 80%. And please note that IT is only involved in these projects half the time. That will tell me something about the priorities of CFO. And maybe in the past they were willing to wait and sit and wait for a big project, IT project, to pay off. But now it's the time is different. They want value for the money right now. But it, of course, raises problems with intercomparability, access to data, and shadow IT and security issues. This trend is further underlined here with the large number of special systems that we have in our organization, or SAS systems. That's different. Various departments go out and buy their own system, and that is increasingly put into use. So our HR department, our marketing department, they go out and they don't want to sit and wait for the IT department to implement, or maybe even to develop some special application for their use. Why should they do that if they can just swipe the credit card and be up and running within the lunch? So I can't blame the line of business. They have the focus on their task and they want to go forward. But it doesn't change that there's challenges. So data is scattered all over the place. So not even just inside the company, but it might be in all over the world. The incompatibility, if we see a new business opportunity or a streamlining opportunity, it could be hard to react quickly enough if we don't have access to data. We don't know how to put data together, and it's a complex world. And I can't blame the line of business because they're not thinking about this. This is typical. These integrations and interaction is typical done by the IT department. Also, security. Seen in terms of security, we can have data we want to gather, and one set of data might not pose a risk, another set of data might not pose a risk. By putting them together, they can represent a whole different risk story altogether. The same with master data or shadow IT. Who's responsible for the IT? Who's maintaining the data if data is scattered all over and copies is scattered all over the company? That, of course, poses a problem. But I have to say, never before as now, our industries have the incentive to connect the data and between the worlds. I'm not just talking about making a few bucks to do things differently. I think that we are on the edge to the era where we actually can put technology in use to be part of the solution of some real problems. We've just been through a big pandemic, and I know that we are taking samples from our sewage systems to track those bacteria. Why don't we do it all the time? Why don't we do it real time and have sensors that can track these bacteria and send them to AI for analytics, and maybe also utilize OT to get things done in the real world. Also, the energy crisis, the climate crisis, the resource crisis may be addressed by these tools. We are on the era with some very powerful tools if we combine them. But data is data, and data is what drives our business, and we have to be aware that when we scatter all the data all over the world, we'll have a huge task of doing integration and making our infrastructure. So we have to take to mind who will need to access those data, who will have the ownership, what are the policies, and what do we do with all the shadow IT. Also, compliance will be a big issue, and I dare think that maybe SCRIMS 3 will be on the agenda soon. Not to mention the complexity when we integrate all these data. If some part of the infrastructure goes down, does it mean that we can keep on going in the other part of our company? But I think we can't fight it. We can't afford to fight it. So we have to lean into it and bring our heads together. I've been around seeing a few OT installations in the wall cabinet. I've seen how the OT people, let me say, don't have the biggest interest in networking and in security. On the other hand, no one would like me to see how I program a PLC. But if we can utilize each other, work together, I'm sure we can make 2 and 2 get to a 5. So we have done it before, and I think we'll do it again. My question to you is, where did the phone department go? In the in the good old days, we all had a telephone department. Where do you have that today? And what about the building management, the access management systems, the fire systems, surveillance, and so on? Maybe it will all convert and will take AI and automation in as powerful tools. So what does it mean for the new department, IT department? Well, my guess is that we have to merge those departments as well. And we are seeing big players, big industrial players actually combine and merge the IT department and the OT department. And the IT department, as we know it today, they will probably not have application support and so on, but they will have to be strong on infrastructure, integrations, data management, data protection, security, of course, and architecture. And we'll have to do it on all 3 technology areas. So just to round up, I think that the world have see into a lot of crisis, and I think the technology is about to be mature, so technology can be part of the solution to those problems. I think that we have to merge the IT, OT, and IoT in order to mature the technologies and get it to the stage where it can be set to use. I think we have to acknowledge that data is data, and we are more data driven. We will have a lot more data in the future, maybe smaller bits, but much more data that we'll have to analyze, and dependence will be between the data will be of great complexity. We will be vulnerable, we will be more vulnerable, but we have the chance to get into the play right now and get ownership of our data and be able to safeguard them and be sure of our compliance. So with these words, I'll say thank you for listening, and I'll give the stage to Pascal. Pascal, please join me here. Could you introduce yourself and go ahead and tell us about Cisco's vision?
Thank you very much, Niels. First of all, I want to thank you and thank Conscia for inviting us for this session this morning. My name is Pascal Hemin, and as you know and you will see, I've changed a little bit my picture, so I was a little bit younger. So I'm going to speak this morning of IT-OT convergence, highlighting the importance of industrial cybersecurity. Before starting, I will just spend a piece of time on a study that I just received yesterday. I'm sorry I cannot share the slide because it's in French, and this slide contains some information that are pretty interesting regarding IT-OT convergence and OT cybersecurity. The question was, if you have a budget of 100 euros, how will you split the budget regarding cybersecurity in the OT environment in case of any troubles? And the answers are the following on. 42% of the budget will go to network infrastructure. 31% will go to asset lifecycle management, and the 25% left will go to management. What is interesting in the architectural network aspects is that there are two very key points. The very first one is regarding what Niels called the shadow IT, having a lot of people being connected to the outside without being connected via the IT. The second point being the segmentation, and I will drill down on these aspects. Regarding asset life cycle management, one of the very important topic, and one more time this has been highlighted by Niels a few minutes ago, is the risk that is linked to very old equipments that are in the OT environment. Last, one of the very important points that is also highlighted is the risk that is linked to the supplier, the subcontractors that all our customers are working with. So let me drill down now on the agenda, and the next 30 minutes we're going to spend together. So I got, as Niels said, I will spend a piece of time in order to define what is OT, what we call operational technologies, and the relevancy, the importance, and the need for industrial cybersecurity. And I will also probably highlight the fact that for OT people, industrial cybersecurity is something that is totally brand new. For them, what is extremely important is safety vis-à-vis cybersecurity. And because we are speaking, and this is a marketing presentation, of course I will have some Gartner slide, because we cannot do a marketing presentation without having a Gartner slide set. One point that I'm going to spend a piece of time on is regarding organizational aspects and the very importance of having IT and OT working together, thanks to consulting companies like Conscia. And I'm going to end my presentation presenting a solution that I was part of, a company named Centrio that has been acquired by Cisco 5 years ago, which is a solution that will help you view what's going on in your OT environment in order to protect it. And we're going to drill down on technical aspects with my partner in crime, Honor. What we are seeing globally in each and every country, EMEA-wise, is that today IT and OT are more or less converging. There are some vertical segments that are today extremely converged, like windmill farms or like founders for chips. These are companies that are extremely converged. For a very simple reason, these are very recent industry segments. For very old companies, like the chemical ones, like the automotive ones, or the pharmaceutical ones, this notion of integration is not that advanced. And there are also companies that are totally not linked or not converged. Nevertheless, in each and every company we are working with, in each and every segment, the very first point that is popping up in all the cases is cybersecurity. What are the risks I'm creating in my environment when linking, converging IT and OT? What about the risk that may come from the OT into the IT world and vice versa? So it's very, very important to protect this environment. The second argument is that the process of a company are running in a plant. And if there is a problem in a plant, your company may have big issues. If you look at the example of Stuxnet, a French big company named Saint-Gobain has something like 100 of plants that were down for many weeks just due to a virus attack. And today, this is something that we are seeing more and more. Attackers today are targeting the OT because for years it has not been protected. This is working a very safe manner, but it is not cyber protected. And the very first point that we're gonna see, on which I'm gonna repeat, and which is absolutely crucial is to have a strong visibility of all the assets that are in a plant. For IT people, this is just basic. This is not the case for OT guys. OT people are running a process. They are not interested in knowing how many IP addresses, how many switches, how many whatever IT equipments are in the plant. They are here to produce and to deliver a car or whatever the best way. So today, what we are asking, and we are starting each and every project regarding IT-OT convergence by doing an assessment. And please do so, because as far as you start by doing a POC on a solution like cybervision, it will be always the same. We are facing issues, we are not working together, and it generally doesn't work. The relevancy of doing an assessment is that you will have a common work between IT and OT people, sharing the same vision, sharing the same information, sharing the same objective. And this is a way to create a strong cooperation between IT and OT people. Of course, we are seeing in all the countries in EMEA, in Europe, very strong push from the states regarding regulatories, regarding frameworks like NIS. This is extremely helpful, and in each of your countries, I do suspect that you also have this type of constraints. This is not clearly seen as a constraint. This is a value, because it will help you be more strong, be more protected, and go via a very defined steps in order to protect the OT environment and the IT and the OT being converged. Niels has presented that, but I want to come back on this because this is absolutely crucial. We need to define what IT, IoT, and OT are. Of course, when you are working in the IT, for all of us, it's very clear. It's about computing, it's about data sharing, it's about storage, it's about application, all these things that we know perfectly well in the IT environment. IoT, depending on the country, depending on the different type of understanding, it's mainly about SIM connection, having a solution in order to connect a lamp, or in order to connect a cell, in order to connect a connector, whatever. The most important point is regarding what we call operational technologies. These are equipments that are impacting a physical process. So as you may see in a plant, an OT equipment is a PLC, and I will explain you in a few minutes, in the very next minute, what it is an equipment driving a process. Or another way to say exactly the same, OT, operational technology, is about all the things that are dirty, things that are doing a lot of noise in a plant. So let me start by doing what I'm presenting at the OT for the Dummies in order to explain you what we understand by OT, operational technology. First of all, you will see and find OT system in a lot of environments. Of course, in an industrial environment like a car manufacturer or a chemical plant. But you can also, and it is not on my slide, you can also find OT equipment in a bank. As an example, if you have a big data center in a bank, and each and every bank has a data center, you of course have also air conditioning. You also have electrical consumption, and you have a connection to the electrical environment. If these physical equipments are attacked, your data center is down. So clearly, there is a link between the physical and the IT world. Another example that I'm using also very frequently is the hospital environment. In an hospital, generally in very, let's say, big hospital, you do have what they call a sterilization plant, the place where the equipment, the scalpels, all these medicine equipments are sterilized. if this plant is down, you no longer are able to deliver proper solution to your customers. Same in an hospital, air conditioning is absolutely crucial for the surgery block. What if the surgery block is down just due to an attack against air conditioning? And what we can say, it's something that is frequent and that we've seen many, many times. All these environments are linked, connecting to what we call a PLC, a programmable device that is driving a physical process. These equipment are generally extremely old. You will find in a plant a lot of equipment that are more than 20 or 30 years old. And it's important to understand that these equipment are running a process. You cannot do whatever you want on this equipment. You cannot upgrade on the fly. You cannot stop an equipment that is running. And all the equipment driving a process are also handled by people that are very knowledgeable on this equipment, but they totally ignore the constraints of the IT. Coming back to the notion of human aspects and the relevancy of having consulting companies like Conscia, it's also about making people from the IT and the OT to work together. I will come back on this aspect in the very next minutes. One other aspect also to understand is that these equipment are generally placed in dirty places, in locations that are somewhere on the process, and in very, very numerous cases, even the guys that are on the production line do ignore where they are. So it's important to work and to understand that the reason why I was speaking a few minutes ago of audits or assessments, it's very important to know where the equipments are located and what they are doing. That's the reason why we need to work with the OT people being on the plant, because generally some of them do know where and what these equipments are doing. One interesting thing that I've seen many, many times in a lot of various vertical segments and a lot of vertical customers, there are a lot of subcontractors in the OT environment. And generally, the guys that are maintaining or helping the customer to do his process are very, very frequently more knowledgeable on the process than the customer itself. On the other hand, what we are seeing also is that these guys are very frequently coming on site with their own PC, with their own 4G connection, creating a link with their clouds, with their servers, and creating potentially a risk in the OT environment. This is absolutely crucial to have very good practices in order to protect all this environment and all the suppliers. One important and interesting aspect is that today these engineering stations are running very frequently on outdated operating systems. We've seen many, many times Windows 95 or Windows XPs or whatever. And the problem is you cannot upgrade this very outdated operating system because they are running a software that is running a process. So you need to be very cautious on the way you protect your environment. What we are seeing very frequently with a lot of let's say automotive industrial customer is that they are putting this type of solution in bubbles or cells in order to protect any propagation of a potential risk on these systems. One interesting thing I'm going to spend a bit of time on is what we all know is the notion of Purdue model. The Purdue model has been developed a long time ago by the University of Purdue, and it has defined the five-level model. Cisco as a company, and with all our partners, we are extremely present in what we call the upper level of the Purdue model, meaning the levels that are above level 3. We do have a very, very strong presence in this environment, in a network environment. What we are seeing in many of our customers is that today there are firewalls between the IT and the OT department. But our market share in the lower level of the Purdue model are not as important as they are in the upper level. So clearly the intent of Cisco is to be more and more present in these levels. And the intent is very simple. As far as you converge IT and OT, you need to have a single and converged skeleton or a single network in order to link IT and OT, in order to deliver to the people in the plant the same type of services that you have in the IT ones. And as I said, and as I repeat, and I will repeat one more time, in order to do that, you must absolutely know what you have in the lower level of the Purdue model. What we are seeing very frequently is that there are a lot of cells globally in the plant, and the intent is to link them via this connected network. On the other end, and Honor will drill down on this aspect later on, our intent is not only to provide you a single converged network, but also a single converged cybersecurity protection solution. You may have noticed that we've recently bought the company named Splunk, and our intent is, of course, to provide you, and I will present that later on, a single converged SOC solution with IT and OT being in a single portal. One other way to present the same type of approach is to highlight the notion of timing. In the above level of the Purdue model, we generally have time. We are not under pressure. This is not the case in the OT environment. Time is extremely short when you are running a process. And we need to have practices that are in line with these constraints that we are seeing on this type of Purdue model. So let me come now to the Gartner slide in order to present you what they, and we are totally in line with this type of presentation, the process that we are globally seeing in all the segments that we are working on. As I said, always, this is exactly what we've seen with the telephony over IP process 10, 15 years ago, when we had the telephony and the IP world converging on a single platform, now being what we call globally the collaboration environment. This is exactly the same type of process that we will have in this environment, having IT and OT converging. Nevertheless, there is a big difference. We are touching the very core of a company. We are touching the business of the company. So we need to be extremely cautious, and this is where it's very important to have consulting companies, to have partners that are able to handle and to work with you in order to be very solid on the convergence aspects. One other very important point is that when we are speaking of cybersecurity, we are just selling fear. I think it's not the best way to motivate the people. What we need to highlight, as Neil said a few minutes ago, it's about evaluating the data that you have in a plant. It's about sharing the information. It's about collaborating in order to deliver the best process for your customers, meaning internal customers or for your boards. What we are globally seeing is that in a plant, things are going more and more paperless. A lot of virtual reality is now being used. We are seeing a lot of cloudification in the OT environment. If you look at a solution like MindSphere for Siemens, as an example, they are presenting and proposing solutions that are very close to what we have with AWS or Microsoft or whatever cloud provider. The cloud today is also a reality in the OT environment. We're gonna highlight this point later on. Edge is crucial in order to make it work. And cybersecurity in this environment of having more and more cloud, being more and more paperless, being more and more automated and converged, cybersecurity needs to be very well seen as a very important point in the convergence aspects. What we are seeing is that our customers are at different phases. I've seen very, very few of them being on the right-hand side of my slide, being totally converged. To be honest, there are very, very few of them that are here. Most of the company we are working with are, let's say, in the middle, starting to converge, starting to integrate IoT in the plants, starting to have solutions like LoRa, like Wi-Fi, and so on, in order to provide to the people in the plant more and more IT-oriented solution. In the meantime, the guy in the plant are also using what we call shadow IT in order to answer and to solve their own issues. So this has to change, this has to be worked as a project, and this is where the notion of strategy regarding IT and OT convergence is absolutely crucial. What are the key drivers regarding this notion of OT visibility and and security in the OT environment? The very first one, as I said a few minutes ago, is about having a knowledge of all the assets that are in a plant. And to be honest, we've done a lot of audits in a lot of countries, and we are asking always the same type of question. How many IP addresses do you have in your plant? And generally, OT people are doing big mistakes when answering this type of question. The second point, which is also very important coming from the board, is that more and more CEOs, CFOs are today afraid of being attacked in their plant by virus or by whatever type of problem in their environment. And one of the key issues they have is, first of all, how do I insure my risk? Second, what are the impact on my brand? Third, what are the impact on my stock? And these are very strategical aspects that we need to help them to lower the risk and to offer them a better solution. On the other hand, having a project of IT and OT convergence is also a way to be more and more competitive. And this is about data evaluation that Niels has spoken a few minutes ago. One of the key topics that we are seeing everywhere, and I'm going to spend a piece of time on that, and this is where Conscia can provide you a lot of value. It's about human aspects. It's about making IT and OT people working together. And this is not that simple. Because in many, many cases, OT people are afraid of having people from the IT coming in their environment. They don't know how IT works. On the other hand, IT people do ignore generally how the processes are working. I'm also using very frequently an example of a type of situation in which people are not understanding themselves. When an IT guy speaks of security, the OT guy is hearing safety. And this is not the same type of understanding. On the other hand, when IT people are speaking of download, this is a server sending an information to a PC, to a whatever station, the OT guy understands exactly the opposite. So first of all, and this is where a company like Conscia can help you, this is very important to align and to have common practices, common vision, common schedule, and common understanding of all the issues that you're going to face. Of course, OT people are not stupid. They are delivering the processes a very relevant manner, a very safe manner. IT people are also delivering a lot of value, and now we need to make them work together. So what we are seeing mainly in all these environments is that there are a lot of common requirements coming from both the IT and the OT guys. First of all, there is a need, more and more need for more bandwidth, because each and every time a problem occurs in a factory, in a plant, in a cell, it's always because of the network. The answer is always the same. The cable has been cut, the switch is down, network is always a problem. So we need, first of all, to deliver more bandwidth in a plant, a more safer manner, and we need to have a better architecture. Of course, data valuation, data usage coming from the plant is something that is very helpful for the global strategy, of the company in a cyber-secured manner. And we're going to drill down on this aspect later on. Of course, as far as the company we are working with are scaling, we need to propose a solution, an architecture, a design that may scale with the more edge solution in order to provide power where it is needed for the processes. That's the reason why we've defined, and you can find all this information on our web, we've defined a lot of what we call Cisco validated designs. These are designed per vertical segment because we don't have the same type of architecture in an electrical utility, in a water company, in a chemical one. So you will find a lot of information on how to architecture your network depending on the type of vertical segment you are in. You have on my slide, let's say, the type of factory of the future you may use, seeing from a high-level approach. As I said, when starting a project in this type of factory, it always starts by a discovery phase. Then we're going to enter in what we call the segmentation. It's very close to what the NIST framework is proposing, but I'm insisting on this aspect because what we've seen many, many times, customer jumping to the fourth part of my slide, meaning integrating solution like ours, CyberVision, in a SOC and expecting this to solve all the problem in a plant. This is clearly not the best way to work. So please come to our partner Conscia in order, first of all, to start by doing assessments, working on segmentation, and then we can enter in a process of cyber securing your environment. One important aspect of the process is to understand that time is a big issue in this environment. You cannot do whatever you want, whenever you want, because there are processes that are running, there are time slots in which you can maintain, do upgrades or whatever, and it's important to have a common vision on the timing. The second aspect, which is very, very important, is to have a strong sponsorship from your leadership in order to work on this aspect. It will help you erase some of the issues you may face. Of course, you will have to change some of your processes, and it will take time. And we are, of course, here to help you deliver and transform your processes. And it's just basic, but please don't over-engineer. Start simple, start small, and doing an iterative process in order to deliver all this type of transformation. We have put, and my slide set will of course be accessible, we've put on this slide all the type of steps you may find in order to reach the North Star. The North Star being having IT and OT converge and protected via a SOC. But on each and every step you have here, you will find very, very important actions to take, and starting, as I said many times this morning, by assessment and then segmentation and so on and so on. The solution that we are Cisco providing is a software solution that has been developed by a French company in which I was working a long time ago, named CyberVision. This is a tool that has been launched 5 years ago, just after the Stuxnet story, and the intent was to offer to our customer a solution to understand what's going on in the process. So the very first point that CyberVision, Cisco CyberVision is providing is the visibility of the OT environment. And as I said, this is something that is absolutely crucial in order to protect the industrial network. The second aspect, which is also very important, is to, and we're going to present you that, is the notion of security posture. How do I protect more and more my environment in order to be more and more secure? And what are the operational insights we can work on? So OT visibility, as I said, is absolutely key. And what we can say is that you may find a lot of hidden costs behind this type of approach. We have a very simple solution based on our equipment, like the one that I have on this table here, named an IC3K. You can put this equipment in your plant in order to gather the information that are coming from the OT network, and it will provide you a map of all the equipment that are in a plant. Of course, it can run, and Honor will present you that later on. It can run on all our equipments with having the relevant memories, relevant IOX, but this is something that can run on all our equipment, giving you the type of map that you have in the upper part of my slide. So having put this equipment on the OT network, you will in very short period of time, meaning 2, 3, 4 hours, depending on the network, you will see a map of all the equipment that are in. And it will also show you the risk per industrial equipment and the connection between all of them. The key benefits for IT people is to help them segment the OT networks. As far as you know where the risks are, where the most critical equipment are, where the most sensitive processes are, then you can put in place a strategy of segmenting the network in order to reduce the attack surface. Of course, in the second time, it will help you with the help of your CISO guys to converge security operation and drive IT and OT collaboration. Key benefit for OT people is, first of all, to have the very good knowledge not only of the process, but also of the architecture and the potential risk on their equipment. What we are seeing in many plants is that the guys know that they have Siemens equipment. They know that this equipment may be potentially at risk, but they do ignore why, which level of hardware they need to upgrade to, and this is something that cyber vision may help you with. As an example, on my slide, you have just in the lower part of the slide an equipment with a red tag. This equipment has a potential risk. And what is important to understand is that Cisco's cyber vision is just highlighting the risk. We are doing absolutely nothing on the equipment. The reason why is extremely simple. Imagine if we do an upgrade on an equipment that is running a nuclear power plant, it may create some risks. So first of all, we're going to show you all the equipment that are under risk, and you will work with Conscia in order to find the relevant way to upgrade this equipment if possible and when possible. We are also providing the notion of security posture. Via this type of maps or this type of indicator, we will show you the level of risk being defined with you are under. And the intent is to each and every 1 month, 2 months or whatever, is to have a look at this security posture indicator in order to downgrade it and to increase your security posture. Of course, we can also provide you operational insight, like for example, the orders that are placed between two equipments. In case of an attack, we can record what's going on, and we can also show you what were the problems. So it's very important in order, if you are under regulatory constraints, to be able to present to your authorities what went wrong and what were the problems. Till now, all what I said can be done in a very passive manner. We can also, thanks to our equipment, have a more intrusive approach if possible, in your IT environment, thanks to this snort intrusion detection add-on we can put in our equipments. By default, this is not in place. Nevertheless, this is something that we can activate in order to help you have a better knowledge of your OT environment. The final vision that we have, and Niels will, Onur will present you in the very next minute, the architecture that is under what I'm saying, is to have a converged IT and OT security offer. And as I said, in the very next months, as far as Splunk is integrated within Cisco, we're going to have a solution with the CM offer of Splunk, populated with all our security solution, meaning Cisco ISC, Cisco SecureX, StealthWatch, and CyberVision for the OT part. One very important point is all this equipment, all these solutions are powered with, thanks to Talos team, which is a very important team of experts working on cybersecurity risk. I'm going to end now by presenting you some of the customer stories that we do have. Of course, Conscia has a very relevant testimonial of very good customers on this aspect, but they cannot be quoted. So that's the reason why I'm presenting here 3 customers that we can quote. The very first one is a natural gas distributor that we are working with. This company was under very strong regulatory constraint, and they were obliged to present to the authorities all the maps of where the equipments are, what are the potential risks in case of an explosion. The second one is one of the most advanced reference that we do have. It's what they call an FPSO. It's a boat that is extracting oil offshore. This boat is a floating plant with a lot of risk, of course, because they are generally in very sensitive environment and there are some terrorism risk in the environment where they are. And the intent is to provide them and to protect the plant when it is extracting oil. And as far as the oil is extracted, there is a tanker that is going very close to the FPSO in order to put all the oil onshore. Last customer, and this is probably the most advanced segment in EMEA, is an electrical utility company we are working with. This company has a lot of substations that are doing distribution of electricity all around countries, and each and every substation is protected by our solution. So thank you very much for this session. I'm going to pass the ball now to my friend Onur, presenting you our solution. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them via the chat, and we're going to answer them at the end of the session. Onur, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Pascal. Hello, everyone. Hope you are having a great time so far. It's been a great day. Very nice to be here today. My name is Onur, and today I will be covering a little bit on the industrial cybersecurity piece. I would like to expand a little bit on what Niels and Pascal has covered during the first half of the presentation. I'm representing the industrial IoT team along with my colleague Pascal, and I'm working as an industrial IoT technical solution specialist. So the focus will be, as I mentioned, on OT security, and in particular on the first pillar within that OT security framework, which is CyberVision, and the visibility piece, I would like to say. However, before getting into that, I would like to shed some light also why we are relevant in this space in the first place, and some of the products, some of the new launches that we recently had, and our understanding, our vision on industrial IoT. So without any further ado, let's get into it. And I would like to start with a testimony slide, as we recently celebrated our second decade in industrial IoT. So Catalyst 2955 was released slightly over 20 years ago. And that also shows the longevity and why Cisco has been long in the industry. and our commitment to industrial IoT space. That's very important to note, because at first, when we first released our product, so many people had question marks in their heads whether we would be a player here or what are we doing here in the first place. But over time, we showed our commitment, and as of today, we hold the market leadership place, not only in certain verticals, not only in certain architectures and product lines, but overall in industrial layer 2, layer 3 switching, routing, industrial wireless. This is not only the industrial Wi-Fi, but we are also talking about solutions like LoRa and ultra-reliable wireless backhaul, which I will be talking on lately. And we are one of the leaders in industrial cybersecurity. And security is, of course, top of mind for us, both in the enterprise side as well as in the OT side, because that IT-OT convergence that we have been discussing lately, and not only lately, but over the course of last 10 to 20 years, that has some indications, right? There's always a trade-off in life, and as you would integrate IT and OT more and more together, break those silos and kind of merge these networks, it is no surprise that we now see that IT type of attack vectors within OT, right? And this is why we are putting a lot of focus on industrial cybersecurity. Of course, when I talk about industrial environments, the nature of these environments are way different than IT. And whenever we mention industrial, I mean non-carpeted spaces. So whenever we say IoT, we don't really mean consumer electronics or home IoT devices or wearable IoT technologies. We are focusing on industrial IoT, which includes mines, ports, railway systems, connected intersections in smart city type of applications, or utility type of grid type of networks. These are the verticals that we target mostly, right? So whenever I say industrial IoT, please think of the non-carpeted spaces, and this is what we put our focus on. And of course, these areas are not that easy to work with because they require support operating in harsh environments with extreme temperatures. That's one important aspect. And of course, most of the time, we need to kind of fit into very small cabinets. That is to say, we need to have very small form factors, especially if you think of the secondary distribution substations and utilities, or small street cabinets at the intersections. We need to have very small size, and also we need to be able to mount these devices on either DIN rail or rack mount setups. And as I mentioned, we need to be strong against shock and vibration, especially if you are talking about a railway application. Then you even cannot afford to have RJ45 connectors, as they get loose over time. And then for that, you need specific hardware with IP67 type of certifications and M12 type of connectors, right? If you look at the products, so the products you can see in car parking lanes, down below salt mines, in seaports, as I mentioned, in fleet management type of use cases, in ambulance cars, police cars, or remote and mobile type of warehouse management type of solutions. But the design, the understanding is the same. Whenever we say industrial, we typically say we have a fanless design. So these devices do not have any fan inside. We use a specific hardware architecture, and we use convection cooling, as you might see. Most of the time, it's IP30, if not IP67 type of certification. We support dual power inputs in most, especially in the switching line. So to provide that resiliency and high availability that these environments require. And also, the latest of the products, of course, we have IO6-based operating systems, which is in par with our architecture and understanding and convergence, because now you'll be able to use more of the IT type of management tools like DNA Center, vManage SD-WAN, and using the same tools, you have a single pane of glass management understanding that touches not only on IT, but also on OT, right? So we use that IT-OT convergence, not in the terminology, but also in the way we kind of build the products, design the products, and also converge and manage the networks, right? And of course, no one invests in those ruggedized equipment just for the sake of doing so. We need to comply with certain industry certifications, which is top of mind for us. So if we are talking about our railway application, we most typically need EM50155. If we are talking about the utility grid type of deployment, we are talking about IEC 61850 and the framework and the protocols associated with those. If we are talking about oil and gas applications, typically we see IP67 requirements, we see ATEX requirements, especially protection against flammable gases and small explosions maybe in class 1 division 2 type of areas. And as Cisco IoT, we have different solutions and different products to be able to fit different requirements. Of course, we are not the only vendor providing solutions in these domains, but we also have a lot of integrations with other industry giants like Rockwell Automation, like Schneider, Siemens, ABB, Emerson, so on and so forth. What we like doing is, as Pascal mentioned during his presentation, we like doing validated designs. So we get together with these vendors, we kind of build labs, we go into production, and we design those networks, we articulate on the resiliency, high availability, safety, and talk on concepts that is relevant to OT and why Cisco fits into those places. And we validate those designs, and we share those designs, the architectures, and actually low level, even the configuration of the designs and the configuration files with the rest of the industry. That's a very important note. And if you look at the portfolio that we have today, both from the networking and security point of view, you may already be acquainted with the IE portfolio that has been in the industry for, as I mentioned, for more than 20 years now. And again, depending on the vertical, depending on the use case, we have different products, starting from lightweight connectivity all the way up to aggregation layer in large substations. And again, we have dedicated hardware that comes with IP67 form factor that is ruggedized against shock and vibration, especially constant vibration like you would have in light tram type of solutions or conventional railways. And even some of the products, even if you submerge those under the water, they will be able to operate to a certain extent, right? And of course, depending on the type of the application, it could be a simple switch that goes into a machine manufacturer's machine for the internal OT communication, or maybe it's sitting at the end of your production line, providing connectivity to your PLCs, HMIs, or to your RTUs in a substation architecture, or that could be sitting in a street cabinet for the connected intersection type of solution. Whenever it goes to industrial routing, we have different solutions as well. We have solutions, again, for utility specific scenarios. We have specific solutions for fleet management use cases. We have solutions that goes on top of the poles or in the middle of the deserts, especially even if you lose grid connectivity, some of those devices are able to operate with dedicated internal backup battery units. We can operate without any AC connectivity up to 18-20 hours, right? And the new designs, if you look at the new portfolio, all of these devices are expandable. So that is to kind of bring a level of investment protection to our customers, because now that you start with, let's say, like 8 ports, 4 ports, 16 ports, you may need to expand in the future. And then here you see the kind of slot connection for the expansion module, and then we have different density, different variety of those modules. So as your needs grow, you can grow your network without investing any new hardware, any new, let's say, like power supply, or you don't need to kind of talk about the uplink cabling, so on and so forth. So even if you look at the industrial routers, industrial switches, and the design in some of our industrial wireless products, we support modularity, and it kind of is in parallel with our understanding of longevity in OT. Looking at some of the rest, we have the embedded portfolio, so you're able to get the motherboards of these switches and routers from Cisco, and some of our partners get their own get these embedded cards, and they build our own enclosures. So especially if there's a military application where you need to kind of comply with certain military standards in like tactical aircrafts or the tanks, this is a typical application. Or some of our partners, again, get these motherboards and put it in an enclosure that fits into the street light for a kind of a smart city application. But the main idea is we are able to provide you those capabilities, right? And whenever it comes to industrial wireless, we again have the largest wireless portfolio. And you may be familiar with industrial Wi-Fi, which we have been strong at for quite some time. But we are not only supporting industrial Wi-Fi type of applications with IP67, again, like Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E type of outdoor solutions, but we also support LoRa. So if you are familiar with LoRa, we are able to construct sensor-based networks. And with LoRa technology, you can have coverage up to 8 to 10 kilometers in an open area, especially for distributed sensor applications, let's say in a smart city or for remote warehouse monitoring. This is a typical application. And you can do, let's say, smart car parking type of applications. You can do water meter readings using this technology. You can understand if something or some animal or some mouse, let's say, get trapped into something. You can use push to kind of notify emergency buttons, and you can build those solutions on LoRa, right? So wide coverage, we can provide. It consumes less power at the end, and sensor type, but of course it comes with a trade-off, and that trade-off is it's low throughput, right? But this is a typical application of LoRa. And apart from that, we have ultra-reliable wireless backhaul solution. Maybe you have heard of Fluid Mesh before. And after the acquisition of Fluid Mesh, now we have the new radios. And using that same technology, we rebranded as the Cisco ultra-reliable wireless backhaul. And what we are able to achieve with these specific hardware is we can achieve 5G type of KPI on wireless network without having 5G. So if you are a port, you want to do TOS type of operations, or you want to do OCR type of applications, you maybe want to consider teleremote operations, we are able to achieve less than 10 milliseconds of latency with 0 millisecond of handoff roaming. So that is quite impressive, I would say. And as I mentioned, as I exemplified, we have a lot of use cases on ports, on mines. If you want to do, again, teleremote control of those mining vehicles, if you want to do digital dispatch solutions, again, we support all of these on ultra-reliable wireless backhaul radios. And another typical application will be railways, where we are also very strong. We can carry the vital and non-vital traffic over this wireless backhaul. And as I mentioned, this is less than 10 milliseconds of latency. So even if you are doing any teleremote operation in a mine, in a port, or for signalization on the railways, we are able to achieve that with these radios. And we are able to support the KPIs neither Wi-Fi nor 4G as of today can support, right? Last but not least, of course, Niels mentioned it in his presentation. It's important piece of the future, which is AI, right? And what we need to do with AI is we need to provide more data. If we are going to talk about AI, if we are going to talk about fog computing or cloud computing or big data type of application, what we need to do is we need to extract more data. We need to apply data logic potentially at the end. And after that, we do a certain analysis of the data. Then we need to push that telemetry, push that metadata to a certain cloud or on-prem consumer. It could be IBM Watson, it could be Amazon Azure IoT Hub, it could be AWS IoT, whatever that might be, or your systems on the on-prem. But the bottom line is we need to extract more data using MQTT, OPC UA, or whichever protocol on Ethernet, and then apply some certain data logic, and then send it to whichever relevant consumer is going to kind of parse that data, right? And in order to come up with that type of design for the future, and this also applies for virtual PLCs or digital twin type of applications, right? We need to aggregate or extract more data from the factory floor, apply some data logic at the edge, and then send it to somewhere. And this is why the devices you see as of today are no longer just a switch, are no longer just a router, but the design that we have today also is in parallel with that architecture, because what we do is we put or we make these devices strong enough to be able to host some edge applications. And as we are going to talk later today on cyber vision is another edge application whose sensors are running at the edge. right? So that could be a virtual PLC, a virtual RTU that's within a substation. That could be an iPerf type of tool. That could be Cisco's 1000 dice. And the logic, the understanding is the same. We are able to host applications running on Docker containers at the edge, right? So that switch is no longer a switch. That router is no longer just a router, but also an edge compute node, an industrial server, if I may. And of course, with that much of complexity, with that much of a broad of a portfolio, comes the management piece, right? And as I mentioned, now we are kind of converging those networks together. I need to be able to extend my SD-WAN architecture to my utility substations, right? Or I need to maybe discuss a little bit on that DMVPN or FlexVPN type of architectures that I used to have in Skydda communication, where you typically have hub and spoke type of deployments or networks, right? These architectures are also changing with the secure access, services edge, SASE type of applications, cloud on-ramp, direct internet access. We see a little bit of like those conversations flourishing in OT as well. So these type of management tools that we typically use in IT will be more and more relevant moving forward. And of course, industrial security is top of mind for Cisco, and we are named as one of the leaders in this domain, and we will continue being so because this is top of mind for our customers as well as our partners, so that's top of mind for us as well. And you will see over the years a lot of acquisitions, a lot of investments moving forwards, and a $28 billion of net cash deal with Splunk is one example of such commitment. I will not get into details of this because both Niels and Pascal discussed about why IT-OT convergence is happening today, why it is relevant, and what are the potential impacts. And to be honest, from the first steam engine invented by Thomas Newcomen up to today with Industry 4.0 and beyond, right? We need to have more and more of these discussions, because now that my manufacturing, my supply chain, or my ERP application is directly tied with my process, with my manufacturing, or with whatever I manage on the OT. So I'm not able to talk about working in silos where OT guys doing their own stuff, IT guys their own stuff. That world is evolving, that world is converging, and we only see more of these coming up. Of course, the threat is real. It's not that easy. There's a trade-off, and that trade-off means since I have this convergence now, that the attack vectors that I used to have in IT will be also penetrating inside my OT, right? Potentially, and in the past maybe I would put a firewall, maybe a data diode in the past, then a firewall, and then a firewall from layer 4 to layer 7 inspection. I would enable some next generation firewall services in between those different domains, potentially at the IDMZ level. I would do IPS, advanced malware protection for the maybe remote access type of solutions. I would have VPNs, VPN terminations. I would have jump hosts, so on and so forth. And this design have worked pretty well. To an extent, but that's no longer enough. So that's the baseline. That's not going anywhere. We still need to have that type of design. But of course, now that the perimeter is the new edge, I would say, we need a more scalable, we need a more visible, we need a smarter solution, right? And if you see the last 5 to 10 years, we have had a lot of challenges, especially ransomware targeting major manufacturing customers all around the world. And not only just that, like it's affecting the production, it's causing millions of dollars, but there's also implication regarding the intellectual property, right, which is very important, and you lose reputation, which has like effect beyond seen. And not only that, some mission critical infrastructures like utilities, water utilities, are also being targeted. Within the last 2 years, there were a lot of attempts to change the amount of chemical in some of the water utilities, and this causes a kind of nationwide threat for public health, right? So the danger is real, and this is why the best time is to act is not today, it was yesterday. And the main challenge is, of course, the paradigm in OT is very different than IT. because in IT typically we have 3 to 5 years of refresh cycles, which is not applicable in OT, as Pascal mentioned. Well, typically it will be more than 10 years, 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, sometimes even 20 years. And that means that some of these assets are not patched, right? And they are using a legacy software. There might be vulnerabilities associated with those, and we don't even know what type of vulnerabilities we are exposed to. And of course, over the time, there is a problem of shadow IT. We work with different OEM vendors. Maybe I'm I'm running a manufacturing facility, and I have different production lines, and I'm working with different vendors, right? And if all of these guys are bringing their own remote access solutions, and if all of these guys are kind of giving remote access to their PLCs, maybe for good reasons, but this causes a lot of backdoors, right? Typically, I would like to understand what type of flows do I have in my network. Are they legit? Are they not? If they are legit, who established it? What type of communication these devices are doing? Like, are they doing a PLC program upload, download? Are they trying to change any like system variables on my operations? So I need to have that visibility so as to be able to kind of make smart decisions. And the reason why we emphasize visibility a lot is because if you don't have the visibility, you cannot secure, right? Because we are not looking after visibility just for the sake of having it, but to be compliant with NIST 2, IEC 62443, these kind of frameworks that we are following. And if you look at the frameworks, most of the time we need to apply conduiting, we need to apply zoning. And in order to apply zoning, we need to first have visibility, because if you don't have visibility, how are you going to put that network access control rules in place? Because the biggest challenge in OT is like whatever we do, if the process is working, we cannot really cause any downtime, right? It's unacceptable. And because we don't know the flows, because we don't know what type of assets do we have in our environment and how they communicate, we don't necessarily know what type of network access control rules we must have. Another challenge is most of these OT systems may work in layer 2. It could be layer 2 broadcast, layer 2 multicast, but that traffic may not necessarily go over the firewall, right? Depending on how we kind of define the rules on the firewall, of course, but most typically what we do is we have the layer 2 boundary at the firewall level. We do the inter-VLAN routing. We do the kind of the inspection on the firewall level, but we don't have that much of visibility in east to west traffic. So maybe if it was a campus type of environment like in OT, the typical network traffic you would have is south-north, and then applying the control at the edge, at the perimeter, would be sufficient, because you wouldn't really expect that much of east to west type of traffic. But in a data center, it is different, the nature of the traffic. In an OT environment, the nature of the traffic is different. So this is why that visibility is very relevant, especially in OT. And we, as Cisco, if you have like joined some of the sessions like of this sort before, in IT and IoT, we approach security as a journey, as a framework, as an architecture. And whenever we talk about security, it's also the device security, how we design our products, the operating system that goes within. We have a lot of security mechanisms inside those devices. So we make sure we store all the data in tamper-proof chipsets. We make sure the hardware is authentic. We make sure that the image on the device is a Cisco image. We check the hash values, right? We need to make sure the operating system is not somehow tampered. So we have the hardware and software check mechanism, and that comes with the iOS XE operating system. That's modular. We are able to host Docker container applications, as well as we are able to run all of these checks, right? Both from a hardware perspective, also from a software perspective. So this is the hardware design principle that we have at core, but also we have architectures, we have validated design guides, and the way we kind of design the network is also important, right? It's not the product security, but also the network security, both at the edge, both at the perimeter, at the end station level. It is very important. And that starts with asset visibility. So that's the first pillar. And the goal is to have the network segmentation. After having the visibility, then you know what type of assets you have what type of subcomponents associated with those assets you might have, how they are communicating, how many packets or bytes of data has been generated, how many flows has been generated, which ports are used, what are the application variables that has been exchanged in the network, and then you can go to your network access control solution and apply some policies, right? Because now you are able to understand the flows within your process. You are able to do the right level of segmentation without causing any downtime. Of course, if that device in the floor is trying to kind of open up a communication with a, let's say, a malicious public IP, you should be able to detect that threat, both from the first pillar or the third pillar, which is the potentially the firewall, and you should be able to terminate those sessions. And eventually, the goal we have is to feed our SIEM or SOAR type of security operations center with all that data. It is important to have a holistic understanding on view on the security events to potentially also understand the false positives and kind of get a better, let's say, security posture each and every time. But the main goal is to have that operation from a single point of view, and then either use the REST APIs or syslog type of integrations to kind of feed the operation center from all angles. So at Cisco, the first pillar, which is the visibility pillar, falls under cybervision. Cybervision is the tool that gives us that network visibility with a full list of asset discovery that shows us the communication patterns in between those different devices. And not only doing that, we are also able to give security posture analysis to the users, right? So if there are vulnerabilities associated with those devices, then what are those vulnerabilities? If, let's say, there is a, anomaly or vulnerability associated with that specific vendor and that specific vendor's specific firmware on that PLC, we can guide you towards external links, and we can kind of articulate on how to lower the risk score as well as remediate or patch that device. And also, we are able to do baselining on the system. Whenever I say baselining, you are able to say, okay, this is the normal regular operation of my network. And then after I detect and understand that regular operation, I can now say if there's any deviation for whatever I defined as the baseline, the system will generate alerts, right? And potentially send emails or warn the administrators. That is of critical importance for us because sometimes some guy thinks that it's a good idea to connect a hub and then connect like their own networking gear to the network simply because they need maybe a wireless or Wi-Fi coverage in a particular location in the plant, or maybe they need to connect a couple of devices or sensors and they thought that that would be a good idea. But again, these type of things create the shadow IT problem, and that kind of bears a lot of security issues. So with baselining, whenever there's a new device on your network, you'll be able to see if that device has been there for quite some time, has been doing normal operation, but all of a sudden it starts the program upload, download type of interaction with a public IP. Again, that's not a new device, but that's a new communication over different IPs, different MACs, maybe different ports. You will be able to get notification, right? So we have visibility aspect of it, we have security posture aspect of it, and we have the baselining, anomaly detection point of it, which is very important because maybe you are exposed to some zero-day attack, and with that anomaly, with that deviation from your defined baseline, you may be able to notice those zero-day events. And as I mentioned, cybervision is capitalizing or leveraging on the edge compute architecture that we have at Cisco. What we have is the Cybervision Center. Cybervision Center is the user interface where you log in with your credentials to kind of visualize all the data, all of my events in my network, all of the security alarms, all of the vulnerabilities, the communication maps that will be also visible, that I will also show in one of the slides. So you will be able to understand the logical flows between those different segments inside your network. And that will be the place where you host the Cybervision application, the user interface. But the Cybervision sensor resides on the products. So what we do is we are using that edge compute capability in this is an IE3400 switch. This supports IOX, which is the Linux plus iOS XE operating system. And we are able to run Cybervision sensor as a Docker container. So there's a Docker container application inside the switch. And whenever there is like PLCs, HMIs, or whatever machinery is connected to this device, I'm able to get a mirror of that traffic inside that application. and I'm able to do deep packet inspection up to layer 7. I'm able to do application decoding, and then after I do that process at the edge, I only send the metadata. I only send the telemetry information to Cybervision Center. This is a very important design, and this is a differentiator of Cisco because there are other solutions in the industry as well. Most of these solutions rely on an out-of-band span type of architecture, or TEP type of solution is required, or you need to have a kind of out-of-band solution. But with Cisco, what you do is you deploy the IE switches, industrial routers, as you would connect your assets, and you just host that application at the edge, and that application will do all the deep packet inspection. So that means you don't need to build any span, you don't need to build any out-of-band network, and you don't need to worry about if that span is going to kind of over-consume my uplinks, right? Maybe the infrastructure is old, that might be an issue, but even in new infrastructure, if you are like relying heavily on span, if you are doing it inline, and if you are not building an out-of-band network, and if you are running some mission critical or safety communication, that span information, that access traffic may also overload the buffers of the devices, right? So we don't really rely on that architecture. We are able to host that application at the edge, which is a true differentiator, and which is something none of our competitors can bring. So we distribute the intelligence at the edge, and this applies to also Cybervision. For some of our customers, we may have questions around, okay, but like I have brownfield deployment, right? This is a new deployment. I may have devices. These are all Cisco devices, or I don't have any Cisco at all, but I like the solution. Can I deploy? In that case, yes. Even in those environments, we can still have an industrial type of compute device, IC3K. That's an industrial server we have. We host the Cybervision application at the edge again. We take the data via span. So it's a traditional architecture. We take data as a span. We do deep packet inspection at the industrial compute device, as you will see on the right-hand side of the slide on the bottom. And then after that, we can send still the metadata to Cybervision Center. So we are very flexible for greenfield deployments, of course, having the intelligence at the edge within the network. That makes a lot of sense, but we are very flexible. And we support all of the main vendors. We support all of the main protocols. We support S7 Profinet, which is very well known. We support Common Industrial Protocol, Ethernet IP. We support Plant Web of Emerson. We support DMP3, OPC UA, and whatever really, Modbus TCP, whatever is used, like more than 90%, I would say, that's applicable in utilities, manufacturing, and oil and gas. It's already supported. In terms of the design, we are very flexible. As I mentioned, maybe you have a manufacturing plant and you have different production lines, and one production line may be very old. In that type of old environments, as long as the infrastructure supports span, you can use span, and you can kind of send it to our industrial compute. We can do metadata analysis and send the analyzed flow to Cybervision Center. Maybe another production line is having the new gear, right? And then in that case, we are able to apply data logic at the edge, again, like send it to Cybervision Center. And you may not necessarily pick one or the other. We can do mix and match. So you can have single Cybervision Center that's kind of supporting all of those different architectures. A typical question will be, okay, do I need a sensor at every switch? And like in many discussions at Cisco, the answer is it depends. So depending on the OT flow, depending on the process, you would like to have the sensor as close as possible to level 0. But if you are having a, let's say, Skydda type of architecture where you want to have like the south to northbound type of communication, then maybe having a sensor at the aggregation level would also make sense, right? But potentially what we would like to do is we would like to capture each and every traffic, each and every flow within my domain. So the closer you are to level 0, the better it is, because then you don't really miss any traffic that's kind of east to southwest, east to west. And even if it's not hitting the firewall or your layer 3 boundary, you will still have visibility. And that also applies, the same question applies to Cybervision Center as well. Where do you need to place the center, right? So maybe you have manufacturing facilities and you have different IT and OT teams per facility. You put cyber vision center at each and every location, and maybe you have single data center or security operations center or command and control center, and you have a global visibility with a global center. Or likewise, if it's a grid or like oil and gas type of solution, maybe you just have one cyber vision center and you aggregate all the data over your wide area links. And as I mentioned, we can support that like 2-tier or 3-tier architectures, which is important because with cyber vision center, you can do like kind of site management, and then we can have the nested aggregated view on cyber vision global center, right? That's very important. One important point will be around the discovery. We are using full passive solution. We can enable active on top of it, but typical concern in OT is not to cause any downtime. So we are doing the passive discovery approach here. So we are not using any ping sweep, nmap, port scan, or IP sweep, whatever we call these solutions. We are not doing any of those. We just inspect the network traffic as it is available in the environment. And on top of that, if I need more visibility, I can enable active discovery as well, which is a very lightweight broadcast or multicast hello packet in that particular, let's say, a protocol like S7, like Ethernet IP, like IPv6. But as I mentioned, this is only available if you want it. By default, the system is passive. And as Pascal mentioned, we provide asset visibility, we provide communication maps, we can understand and identify, or we can group those devices, right? That's important. We can apply security postures, how many vulnerabilities I have in my network, what is the distribution of those vulnerabilities, how many devices in my network are associated with those vulnerabilities, and if the device is assigned with a risk score, how do I reduce that risk score, right? And what is the achievable risk score, and why do I compute that risk score in the first place? And likewise, I'm able to do operational insights, which is very important. I can provide the insight on the operation. I can see that between that Dell device and that PLC, I see a program upload, a start CPU, stop CPU type of command, which might be suspicious, which might be not, but at least it is something that I need to investigate. And as I mentioned, the reason why we are having this visibility in the first place is to apply or to comply with certain standards. And the main goal is, as I mentioned, we need to apply conduiting, we need to apply zoning. But in order to apply that policy, we need to understand the visibility in the first place so as to apply the right rules. And one typical example of that integration is Cisco ICE. What we can do is, once we have the visibility on Cisco Cyber Vision, we can group those devices. So I have the manufacturing facility A. Within that facility, I have production line C, G, H. And I can say, put that PLC in C, put that PLC or machinery or HMI in H. And I can then extract that information from CyberVision to ICE using PXGrid, and I can use custom authorization rules. So without going to all the way up to layer 3 to your firewall boundary, that device at the edge, it's that switch sitting in my operation, right? Very close to level 0 potentially, and I'm able to download that policy from ICE. So I can say that device that's grouped under manufacturing plant A on the manufacturing line G should not talk to the device in H. Even though they may be in the same broadcast domain, even though they may have the same IP subnet, even though they are assigned to the same VLAN, we can still apply that security policy at the edge. And as I mentioned, we don't necessarily go all the way up to the firewall to do that. And not only that, we have different integrations. If you are using ServiceNow, we can have that integration. If you are using any CM type of solutions, including IBM QRadar, Splunk, or Cisco SecureX, we are able to integrate with those different solutions. That is very important, right? Because you need to also feed those type of solutions from all angles to have better visibility overall. And if you go to Splunk and if you check also QRadar's application exchange, for example, you will see the plugin, and basically you can configure those tools as the syslog export points from CyberVision. Last but not least, you can also do any type of customization using RESTful APIs. So whatever is exposed to you on the CyberVision user interface, you're able to get that, consume that, and also to an extent, of course, change the network interface. And it is that through, let's say, REST capability plus that integration capability that we also differentiate ourselves, right? So this is not only a visibility solution, but if you add the firewall, if you add the Cisco ICE solution, if you have a security operations center, we are able to integrate with those different consumers to provide you a better overall visibility. With all that, we come to the end of my presentation. Now I would like to also invite Niels to the stage. So it's to kind of do Q&A, maybe a roundup. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Onur. Really, really good presentations, a lot of information. I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much, both of you. We have a few questions on the Q&A, and also to be quite frank, I have a few questions of my own. So maybe you will join me here, both of you, and we can have a discussion, if you don't mind. So, Onur, I know you touched upon it several times, but this is the question I get asked the most time when I'm speaking with customers. So, really, did you make this from scratch? Did you make a totally new switch series? Do you made a new wireless series, a new router series, just for the sake of OT, or did you just buy another product and put your own stick on it?
No, that's all. It's solely Cisco design, and more importantly, like our engineering has been working on these products for quite some time. And if you look under the hoods, we are using in many of those products UADP2 ASIC and beyond, because we are having this very similar capabilities that you would typically have in CAT 3850s or CAT 9300s, and we are bringing that capability all the way down to OT manufacturing floor. Because, as I say, like the edge is the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. This is why we have the Cisco dedicated hardware, Cisco kind of chipsets. And we have even some of those devices, we have dedicated hardware, FPGAs. So especially for utilities, if you want to do HSR or PRP type of networks, where you need to also do like critical time stamping, you need to maybe do MACsec over the links for like enhanced security. Mm-hmm. We are able to do that in hardware. And this is way beyond just kind of getting the motherboard from someone and then putting the Cisco label. We put a lot of effort. And that also applies to our new wireless products. We have Wi-Fi 6, we have Wi-Fi 6E, and we can run some of those products in Wi-Fi mode, as well as in ultra-reliable wireless backhaul mode. So in terms of the capability, we are enhancing the products moving forward. And also, we are using iOS XE, as I mentioned, as the operating system. So that's more feature parity, more common management understanding with the rest of Cisco IT portfolio.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm kind of impressed with this, and but I'll hang on to it a bit more. So often I heard some customers talking about, yes, but do you actually think like an OT guy? So one of my customers have been especially thrilled with the life cycle on these devices. Can you tell us a bit about the life cycle compared to the office equipment?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are not using any moving parts inside. So it's all convection cooling. So there are no fans, no moving parts inside. And that's most of the time the biggest issue in the IT products, right? Mm. So these are the weakest points, either the power supplies or the fans most of the time. We are not using any design of that sort. And also, if you look at the longevity of the designs, right, since these are rugged, we test those in harsh environments. You need to certify against certain standards depending on the use case, and that also kind of increases the ruggedization level, which you typically wouldn't see in IT. And I think the single example would be if you go to web today, if you say a year 2000, and if you look at the release dates, that switch has been in the industry for more than 10 years. And we haven't even announced the end of sale yet, even though we have the new line of products. We still continue supporting those. And even if we announce the end of sale, Cisco supports the products 5 more years. So that particular switch at the point in time will have more than 15 plus years of lifespan, which is quite impressive, I would say.
And it matches up with the other OT equipment with the customers.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. In terms of Purdue model, Pascal, you touched on the Purdue model. Would you say that you can deviate from the Purdue model? Is that a law? And how do you see that? And for one thing, a question I've been asked a few times, how do you see IoT or Internet of Things fit into that model?
This is a very good and interesting question, and as always, one side doesn't fit all. There is no generic answer. This is not a law. This is what we are globally seeing. It first depends on the type of vertical segment you are in. There are as an example, a chip founder is extremely integrated, and the notion of Purdue model is very limited. If you are in an automotive environment, also for organizational reason, the Purdue model is very well defined. So first of all, there is no single rule. Second, what we are seeing is that in very large, let's say, historical type of industries, we are seeing what we call the real Purdue model with all this level. I've seen one question on the chat also asking, I've said that there is more and more bandwidth request in the OT plants. I'm totally in line with the comments that have been done. Of course, PLCs, industrial equipments are not requiring big bandwidth. Of course, they are used to send very few bandwidth of very few packets. But what we are seeing more and more is that there is a request for more edge, more consumption at the edge, more usage of video, things like that, or even cloud, and it will drive to an increase of bandwidth request. So coming back to your question regarding the Purdue model, what we are seeing is that there will be a link between IT and OT, like I presented during the call, probably with very still segmentation in the low level of the Purdue model for depending on the type of equipment you are working on. But at the end, it depends on the type of segment you are in. So not a generic law.
Staying on the topic with the Purdue model, another discussion I have with a lot of people is, do you find anywhere in the Purdue model or even in the 62443 anywhere it says that the segmentation has to be done in a physical level, or are you actually able being complied with the Purdue model and also have an office IT VLAN or port in here?
Yeah. What we've seen in some industries that there are at level 3, between 3 and 4, a lot of offices equipment being in offices closet, very close to the plant, with VLANs, with all this type of approaches. But what we are seeing is that as far as we are very close to the process, we are in something like a flat network with a very few VLANs, leveraging this type of equipment because they are ardent. And so there is a usage in plants, in a lot of plants, to have very solid equipment with a long life cycle, as the owner said a few minutes ago, and a limited usage of IT practices in the OT environment.
Thank you. So I've been working a bit with Cybervision, and I must say I'm impressed. But one thing that I've been discussing with my colleagues is this tool, who's owning that tool? Who's supposed to use that tool? Is that a security tool? Is it an asset management tool? It can do all kind of things. So who's the owner? Who should own this product?
So let me answer to your question by the history of Cybervision. Initially, when we designed the product, something like 6-7 years ago, our intent is to put a tool in the hand of the OT people to help them protect the OT environment. So as you may have seen, this tool is extremely simple. It has been designed the way the OT guys are thinking. So it's not very complex, it's very, very simple with red, green buttons, things like that, in order to be integrated and used by OT guys. Nevertheless, it doesn't answer to your question. What we are seeing is that more and more IT people are using this tool, first of all for CMDB's request, because it helps them create and populate the CMDBs. It helps them create a link in order to get a better visibility of the OT environment and to protect it. But first of all, by segmenting, building and segmenting a solid network and entering in the cybersecurity process. One way to answer to your question or type of joke is that who owns the budget? Who will pay for the tool? Yeah. And it clearly depends on the type of customer we are working with. In some cases, the tool is being bought by CISOs. In other cases, it's been bought by the plant, so by the operators in the plant. In some cases, it's also the CISO. So, as I said, it clearly depends on the type of customer segments we are in. Yeah.
But maybe we should underline that we can have multiple users on
Absolutely.
That with different perspectives on
Absolutely.
that. So I noticed also a good friend of mine in the Q&A was asking that bold question. So when is Cisco going to deliver a technology to provide micro-segmentation on silent OT devices without enabling level 2 flooding?
Yeah. So we already have a solution actually with Cisco ICE. So we can do micro-segmentation. So with the metadata we extract from CyberVision, and then we can use that constructs within the CyberVision, and then using those custom attributes on ICE, we can do custom rules. So we can say that PLC in particular, maybe it has been silent for quite some time, but with the information I extract, I can write a rule that PLC of that manufacturer with that operating system, or that's within the group of, let's say, line A, should not be communicating to whatever I define, right? And even if that device has been silent for quite some time, whenever with that like security group take a trust sake architecture, we can apply again policy at the edge, and that traffic may not necessarily go towards the let's say firewall. We have these type of modern solutions. Another approach would be, this is an old solution, but private VLAN type of solution, which is not really very common anymore. But we have ways of doing it, like micro-segmentation, like we do in SDA Fabric. In IT, we can also extend that the same logic to OT.
Perfect, thank you. One last question. I've been wondering, when you talk about OT, you often talk about be able to operate in island mode. And when you talk with IT people, they're always talking about resilience, so backup lines and so. Who will win that battle?
Pascal.
Thank you for the very good question. No, to be honest, I don't know. I think that probably the solution will be in between. As always, because I think the intent clearly is to provide more and more resiliency in a cell mode, because we will not break, I think we don't need to break the sales mode operation in a plant. This is the way the people are working for years, and we absolutely need not to disrupt the way they work.
Good point.
But we need to protect it, to make it more resilient we can, via segmentation, via cybersecurity tools. But first of all, we need to work the way the process is, not to reinvent something that is delivering value for years.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think we'll end the session here. Thank you everyone for attending this. I hope you would like to continue the discussion. Please reach out to your local Conscia office, and we'll set up a meeting if you want to discuss further. With that, thank you very much.